Hello there, folks. My name is Mike D'Angelo, aka That Tellest Guy. Thank you for joining my stream. We are going to try and get into Versali-Virai again in a little bit, but I wanted to, when I was preparing the latest map singing stones for Printful, which is where we do our physical mouse pads battle maps. I noticed something a little off with the way that it connects to the forest entrance, our original map. So I figured I was going to show everybody real quick how I do these sequel maps, how I connect them together for folks who didn't see the last time that I did it. So we'll only spend a little bit of time making these corrections. But what you'll see here is I have the original map open. This is the forest entrance. It was map number 1, the very first one that we made. And what we kind of did was, you can see like a lot of greenery down here that has like a certain style. And when we went to Singing Stones, a lot of that kind of retained. Now the problem is, there's not that greenery here up top, so it doesn't match up. So what we need to do is take what we have here and kind of extend it to the bottom instead. You'll be able to see this a little bit more when I do this. I'm going to change the canvas size to 1024 relative. We're going to make the anchor down here at the bottom so that it shows the top, because that's where it's supposed to connect. And then if I throw this into the forest entrance battle map, I had it the same size, so it made it a little bit easier. You can see there's a decent amount that's connected the right way. Like the road pretty much terminates in the right way. Most of the area, like the tree, this tree looks really, really good. You're kind of drawn to it a little bit because the grass is different here, and you notice that things are a little wonky here. When we throw together this style, it should be a little bit more apparent that it's the way that it needs to be. So we'll keep this open. I'm going to go into Inkarnate. So we have this here now. And what we'll do is go to the brush layer. We're going to use this kind of broken grass texture. We're going to start first just doing something a little like this. We'll put a little bit there. You definitely want to get over top of the tree. And then over here, we're going to do a little bit more of this kind of brushy underlayer. I'm going to drop the opacity even further because we knew that the road was a little bit too pristine as well. So we're going to have that. It kind of makes it look, we'll do a couple passes, it'll kind of make it look a little bit rougher around the edges. And that's where we're going to end it for now. I'm going to save this one more time. We probably won't have to make too many changes to the variant layers that we were doing yesterday. Winter is going to be covered, so you're not going to be able to see too much. And the night one, you might be able to get away without having to go too crazy on that. In either case, I don't have to rush to do anything. But we're going to export this. We're going to export it in low res because I'm not super concerned with that right now. And then we're going to move this into here. Go back into Photoshop real quick. Close the original Singing Stones. We'll hide the original Singing Stones there. Go back in here one more time. Open up Photoshop one more time. We're going to have it here. And now if we throw it over, we only took a few moments to do what we wanted to do. I'm going to have to resize it, but it should look a lot nicer. So if we bring this down to 50%, that's about the size that I throw my low res in. Still a little bit needs to be cleaned up, but I mean, we're almost there at this point. This area over here to about there terminates really nicely. Like I said, still need to do a little bit of cleanup here and there, but if you were going to put these on 2 mouse pads, especially with the way that the outside border is kind of threaded, I bet you right now you wouldn't even notice the difference. So a good change that we made very quickly there. So we're going to close out of Photoshop, and then we'll handle the rest of that off stream. We're going to head back into Inkarnate because what we're going to focus on today is actually the Versali-Virai maps that we were talking about yesterday before we got off. We're going to start with the blacksmith just because I've spent more time with that in game, and I've already run the campaign where this sits and everything, so I already have a good feeling about like where things are going to go. So on the background level, you can already see I kind of carved out where the water is going to be and where it's going to stop. We know that we're going to put some like pier planks and stuff like that here for like small boats to come into. So each one of these squares is a 5-foot square, so there's about 15 feet across. It's not going to be like your big merchant ships are going to come in here or anything like that, but enough room where certain things can happen. So there's going to be a little bit of trying to figure things out here because we're going to need to do things like almost like a canvas tent over top of the blacksmith. The road is going to be a little bit more traveled. So while the tavern map that we were working on had a little bit more of like fancy cobblestones, we're still going to have cobblestones here. The difference is we're very likely going to kind of brush them over with dirt so that they look like they've taken a little bit more wear and tear. We also know that there's going to be a bridge over here. I haven't done too many bridges. I might not have done any bridges that are not wooden, so that might be a fun one for me to explore. And then certainly we have these ramparts that they're squared off now, and we're gonna have to see if we can make sense of it because we want to make sure that it does what we want it to do. One of the other things that I'm kind of gonna try and challenge myself with is it doesn't make a lot of sense all the time. In this map, we might not make too many changes, like in this zone of Versali-Virai. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to have every single house be squared off in the cardinal directions. Like you're going to have a situation where if I got a stone wall, we're going to try and make sure that we do the same style that we did before. So I think it was the core stone walls. And 30 sounds about right to me as far as where everything goes. We know that we're going to have something like this. And we'll just put that together real quick in a square. We might not use this for the blacksmith, but you'll get the idea when I'm done doing what I'm doing. And we'll clean that up in a moment. You're not even going to see any doors in this kind of like practice run that I'm doing. But so I'm a brand new house in this this city, but I mean the architects that are working on it aren't entirely concerned with the way that it looks. So it might not be square like that. It might be kind of off kilter like that, especially if the road is kind of like this one down here. You can see how it kind of tilts to the side. So if you were a smaller house up here, we'll actually just shrink it down so you can see what it looks like. Something like that might make more sense. It's not perfect, and a lot of the time people make mistakes. That kind of thing is going to happen. So you might not always run into a situation where things look like that. Up here in the road, we might not have it be perfectly squared off where the building is right next to the road. We might move it up a little bit. And then subsequently these might move up a little bit. We'll try and terminate that top set of houses so that when it cuts over into the next shape, the next map up, it has a nice clean feel, but like everything else doesn't have to necessarily. So we'll go back to the blacksmith real quick. We'll bring these back up to 30. We're going to move some things around. They weren't perfect when we last kind of played with them, and we're going to have to move around some shapes anyway. You can see it's not perfect right now. So if you hold the shift button down, you should be able to move it by, I think it's 25 degree angles. Oh, well, that was fun. Just everything got messed up. But that's okay, because I had to clean it up anyway. So move that back to 0. I'm going to make it so that the entrance is right here. in the center, and we'll have those little, excuse me, I gotta cough real quick, those little twofers in the middle as well. So one of the things that I did not do very well this time around is I did not plan ahead with the hues and the shapes and the sizes and things like that with the other components of this map. It's a situation where, for some reason, I had erroneously thought that you know what, we're actually going to do something a little different with this. I had thought that the map that I grabbed a clone of was just the tavern map, but I actually made this template ahead of time, so it didn't make the most sense to do it that way. So the reason that I'm doing this like this is I want to have this kind of open to the harbor, so like the guy can grab, or girl, depending on what kind of blacksmith this is, the blacksmith can just go to the harbor, the canal, grab some water, throw it in his slack tub, and then he's got brand new water. He doesn't have to go. There's going to be a well way up this way that you don't even see. Real quick, I just noticed there's these kind of little incongruities down here. I have to add a little bit so that it's not on the wrong layer. This is it's not too often that I use the background and the foreground. It's typically if I'm using a like a water feature, or if I'm using very obvious, I got a little bit of a lisp there, very obvious distance in depth, so you know, like a very high cliff or something like that. Otherwise, I usually can do what I need to do on the same layer. In this case, we're doing it like this just because it makes a little bit more sense. So while we're working on the building shapes, let's keep going, and we'll see what we can do with that. You can see the map itself didn't fully terminate the right way, and we can kind of play with that a little bit. If I come here, I can mess with the opacity, and you can see where everything is supposed to go. You know what, while we're here, let's put some water in that background, and that way when we make the map, the stamp, a little bit brighter, we should be able to see a little bit of a difference. So we're going to grab that stamp one more time, bring it up to about 30 or so, and then lock it again so that we don't keep grabbing it. So right off the bat, that adds a little bit of extra kind of pizzazz to the map, makes you feel a little bit more in it. We're going to try and start to fill out these buildings a little bit more. Now you'll notice some of these buildings have, you know, like strange shapes within them. That was because we were using it to kind of tell the story of depth in those houses. So like this is a house that has 2 levels. I don't know that I would go crazy on this for the regular map. Maybe for a variant, but I'd have to like really feel up for it. Where like I showed like the second floors or whatever, or first floors of every building. That might be something a little extra that I do a little bit later down the line. A lot of these buildings on this map are going to be single story, but certainly this residential building here, you know, they've got, it's probably only 1 floor of residential, and then the other side is, you know, the top is something else entirely. These are stairs leading up. These are stairs leading up here. Most of these other buildings, you know, there's something else going on. So let's see. We've got... Oh, I do realize I am going to have to add doors to some of these. And it's not going to terminate nicely. So I'll tell you what. Before we worry about anything else, let's worry about this first one that we're working on. So we're actually going to delete that, bring this down. It's unlikely that you're going to have your players going into people's residences too much, but, I mean, surely we're all aware of murder hobos and things like that, so it could be that your party is one of those types. get a door real quick, just so that we have a door to work with. And we'll just get a simple wooden door. Nothing too crazy. Okay, and then that's what we'll use. Well, I say that now. So one of the things that you're going to notice is over here, we throw this here. I mean, yeah, it works. You could have a door that opens that way. You're not going to always have that. I'm going to cough. Give me 1 second. I mean, it's nice for now. I feel like it does what we need it to do. And then maybe what we'll do is throw that other one here. And we are going to grab these little one-offs to fill in the space a bit. We're actually going to turn this to layer 1 because I want the door to show up first. Actually, we're going to move the door layer up and see if this changes the... Right now, it was... If I lower it below, that's where the background stamp is. So I don't really need to go crazy with that, but it just makes me feel better to do it that way. And you can do whatever makes the most sense for you. So I don't intend on spending the entire hour on making brick walls and stuff, so we'll play around with some other stuff. I just kind of wanted to show you some of what we could do here. So I'll tell you what, we will keep going into other directions to see what kind of speaks to us. So let's do the cobblestone. So I am going to step back real quick into last week's map, the tavern. So we'll go into Patreon posted. We'll go to the King's Charter floor 1, and then real quick, I'll show you what you can do to get the information that you need and have it ready whenever you need it. So we know that we're going to use these kind of little cobblestones. We currently, I think, have them. So it really is just a brush layer. If I go in here, that looks like the right size. We're not going to save it, so we don't have to worry about anything there. So you'll see I have the size, the rotation, and the size up here all kind of indicated for me. So what I'll do is go into my snip tool, and we'll go new. And just so that I can actually see what I'm getting, grab the entire thing. It's going to show this. I'm actually just going to X that out, and we'll know to look up here instead. Usually I'm not going to have that problem, especially because if I save it, I'm going to save it as, you know, Versali-Virai cobblestone or something like that. So we'll leave that up for now. I'll save that in a moment. You know what? I'll save it just so that I have it. Throw that over here. So I'm in planning Versali-Virai, and I already have one for the grass that we used, and we'll probably end up using that for the rest of the map too, but I want to get some other stuff going first. So this is Versali-Virai cobblestone. And we also know that we're going to need to grab the walls up here, because these are a different color grade for the ramparts. Sorry, it is a little hot in this room. I always start to lose my vocabulary when I'm up in this room. It's super hot. That over, same thing. Calling this Versali-Virai rampart walls. And I don't know, we might be a little too far back to get the... We don't actually have that floor that we can use. So we're going to have to look and see if we can reproduce it real quick. So go to the brush layer. I feel like it was Gothic something or other. It was these Gothic tiles. It would have been rotated 90 degrees and much smaller. So let's try 30. And what we'll do is just draw right over it and apply. And not quite the same. So I'll have to see if maybe it was just a bigger size. The brightness of the walls was 80. So something came down there. Let's, with the placement, we're going to make a slightly bigger size. Go to 50. We'll try 50 out. See what 50 feels like. I feel like 50 is dead on. Yeah, that's pretty darn good. Do 3 of them. So all that I have to change is the brightness. So let's go into color. We'll make it 120, and we'll see if 120 is the right fit. I mean, almost. And we've got, I mean, it's fully opaque, so it's nothing that we're doing wrong there. Let's do it here as well. Might be a little too beat up, like it's a version of that tile that maybe we're using elsewhere. Let's go to core real quick, and we'll see. We don't even have to type anything in. So it's not core. It's not castle either, as far as I can tell. I mean, it does. Oh, here it is. We've got 2 Gothic horrors. We've got crypt floor and we've got Gothic tiles. So let's try crypt floor. We'll do the same thing there. Well, we're going to change the size to 50 or so, I think it was, and the rotation to 90, and the color brightness to 120, and then we'll see if that fits. Yeah, that's almost 100%. Like if I hit Control Z, you can almost barely see the difference. Let's we'll try maybe 115. We'll go even further back. We'll do 110. I do want to try and make sure that it's as consistent as possible, but you know what? Let's just try 100. I feel like we keep on going darker with it, and we don't necessarily need to. Now it looks too dark. All right, we're going to try 120 again. Bear with me. It might even be 125. Oh, sorry, Meatball. Missed the Pikmin stream. I had a horrible headache. Well, I hope you feel better now. I got to get a chat bot so that I can tell when people are on. Yeah, 125 is the perfect set for that. So we'll grab the snipping tool one more time. I'm going to grab this whole set. We're going to make sure that I call it Crypt Floor. So over here you're going to see I'm calling it VV Crypt Floor, and then in parentheses as ramparts. And that way I'll know that's what I'm dealing with. So I'm going to open up that planning on my other monitor real quick so that when we go back to the other guy. I'm glad you're feeling better, Meatball. When we go back to the blacksmith, that's just what we're calling it. That's like the central feature of this map. We can start working on those things. We'll start with the... Let's start with the cobblestone, just to get that out of the way. So you see when I open it up, this is what it looks like now. So I just have an easy way of going and getting this. I don't know if if it actually is cobblestone. I think it is, and I think it's actually on the tavern layer. Nope. Let's go. It might have been temple floor or something along those lines. Should be fairly easy to spot it. Yep, it was tavern. So, again, we're using that to kind of fill out the road. We're going to dirty up the road afterwards because it's not, you know, the tavern's not spending money to do anything there. Oh yeah, I loved Honor Among Thieves. That actually, I think, so I can't even remember, like this year has been going by like a breeze. I think that was my favorite movie of this year. Oh, you'll see I've got it at 135. If I start working on the foreground here, I've got it kind of like that. The reason for that was because when I was turning it on the other map, I wanted it to have that kind of look. I really hope you enjoy it. It was definitely very enjoyable for us. We had a real good time with it. So the size is right, 2135, and then I'm not using the 80 size that I was using on the other map because we're actually just using the tile tool. I think the rotation is still off. I screwed that up. So we'll actually fill in most of this. And then we might do like a change when it starts to turn towards the bridge and stuff like that. And when it starts to go over here. So we'll go 90. So now it's turned sideways. And before we, well, you know what, it's okay. We're gonna do the other side as well. Okay, and now what we'll do is, we're still gonna have to do that, but I wanna see what it looks like. So we're gonna come down to our locked layer, and we'll hide this one again. So coming together nicely. I mean, this was real quick. We didn't do an awful lot with it, but in a half an hour's time, you know, less what we were doing for the time that we spent fixing the forest map, we ended up doing a decent amount over here. So we're going to keep on working with what we had. So we're going to bring this back up to 30, just so that we have a nice overlay to play with while we're kind of putting together things. And now let's go over to that crypt floor. So, I'm in stamps, and I don't need to be in stamps. I need to be in brushes. Still want to do foreground. So, crypt floor. And that one, we want to be... Oh, you know what? So here's the one bad thing about what I did. I took pictures of the color, not of the size. So we're going to try and eyeball it for now. There's not too much that we have to do as far as the ramparts go, so it's not going to break us if we have to do it this way. Back to the brush. We're going to change the color because we know that the brightness is supposed to be 125. We are going to turn it 90 degrees. So it has that sideways look. And I think... Let's try 50 real quick. $50 looks like it could work. Like I said, it's not going to break us if we have to do it that way. We can always brush over it again later, but at least we'll get the general sizes right. So we're going to bring this right over to the water's edge. We'll fix the water later because you can see some of it is seeping into the rampart. We're going to assume... Oh, well, that's interesting. So if we didn't want to do it perfectly to the grid, if you hold the shift button down, you can do different shapes. Now here, we're going to go to an up and down style, because that's terminating in that direction. So that's why we're doing it that way. Let's go to our wall. So that one is, to the best of my knowledge, just the core wall, just changed a color a little bit. So if we want, we can grab this here. Should not be 500, should be 30. And we know that the color is going to be 80. So I think that does what we need it to. Oh, but you'll notice the opacity was way down. So I think, yeah, the brush was okay. It was just the stamp was a little off. There's going to be a little bit of an overlap for these two buildings, because they are pushing off into, well, this one over here is pushing off into the bottom map. This one is just pushing into the rampart itself. Let's do that here. Thank you. I've got a little bit of experience with like the walls and stuff like that now, and interiors, so I'm able to kind of put these together. The thought of doing anything with like an interior map as early this year as like April, like, filled me with panic and dread. But after the Forgotten Keep that I worked on, I feel a lot better about it now. So grab this one, throw that here. And very likely what we'll do is put like a portcullis over here, so you can see, like, in times of need, they'd be able to kind of like sector off the city as needed. And eventually, when we start to do the sewers of Versali-Virai, we'll do the same thing. We'll use like gates and stuff like that on the inside. And it'll kind of be glimpses into other parts of the map, so that people could see, you know, that's where I can go, but I need to figure out a new way to get there, that kind of thing. So Meatball, you say, I would love to get Pro on Inkarnate, but I don't want to go through setting up the credit card. Yeah, I get it. The nice thing is, like, you can set it to an annual, and it'll just be a one-time thing. So I think, like, my Inkarnate just renewed in like the middle of July. I must have bought it like as a birthday present for myself or something last year. Inkarnate is like relatively cheap. I use yeah, you can do like an annual fee. I do a tool called World Anvil, and I think I talked about that yesterday. I'll definitely show that off when I have a little bit more time. That is a tool that is, they have a couple of different options for like your world building kit, and the version that I'm on is like the Grand Master or something along those lines, and that is a lot more costly compared to Inkarnate. It's worth it, I think. I wouldn't be spending the money if I didn't enjoy it, but it's definitely, it makes Inkarnate look very cheap. Affordable, not cheap. We'll put it that way. I'm actually going to leave this area unwalled. We'll kind of make it look like the portcullis is the reason that it's the way that it is. And then worst case scenario, we can always clean it up later. I mean, it's not a bad idea. If you can DM well, it's one of those things where I feel like you can make a proper job out of it. You know, like, there's plenty of strangers online who would love to play D&D and just don't have anybody to play it with. And, you know, you could DM for your friends and show other people how it's done. Like, there's a lot of good stuff that you can do with D&D. And believe it or not, it's one of those things where you could probably put it on your resume in some cases, and you can, like, not just playing DM, but like being a player. It shows commitment to a project. if you are a DM, it shows leadership abilities, it shows planning abilities, that kind of thing. There's a lot to be said about playing D&D and being consistent about it. And sometimes you'll luck out, and it'll be, you know, someone who plays D&D on the other side of the table and things like that. So D&D doesn't necessarily have to be your full-time gig or anything like that in order for it to still be a valuable resource for you. You know what? I mean, to be perfectly honest, I'm not the best DM either. I think as long as you're having fun with it, that's the important part. Oh, you know, we have this set over here, so let's grab those two. Figure there's no real reason to stop working on the ramparts this close to being done, so we'll just wrap these ones up. I think as long as you can kind of come up with like a couple of surprising antics for your party to experience, it ends up being a good time for everybody. I'm very much a let me take a step back. I used to be very much a pantser. I feel like as I'm growing older, I need to be more of a plotter. So, like I said, it's been a long time since my party played, and we are getting very close to starting it up again. And I've just been thinking about it for years now, trying to make sure I can do it justice. And it's probably going to be one of those things where, like, I can't do it justice, but, you know, we're just going to wing it, you know, day of and see how it goes. But we'll see how that all turns out. That session actually starts later this month for our first. We kind of had the party split in two, so we're doing something like that now, where we're taking one team down one route and another team down another before they rejoin. Alright, so we've got that. Let's do something a little new instead. We're going to actually go to... We've got these boards that we could kind of use. Oh, you know what? Am I still in stamps? I don't know that... Stamps might actually be the right way to go. So we've got the docks. The docks probably the way that I would do this. And the reason that I'm saying that is it I'm gonna make it so that they're about that size. We want it to be able to be a situation where you can kind of see a little bit of layers underneath it. This might be, well, no, I'm gonna keep this fairly straight. Here's what we're going to do. Terminate that one there. And we're going to move this whole set down to accommodate that kind of shift that we're going to have. Yeah, it's about the same size, so we'll just use two of them. That one I am going to get. You know what? We're not going to make it bigger that way. We're going to go into the transform settings. I want it to be a situation where we stretch it out sideways. So 120 feels like it might be a smidge too big. 118 looks good. Get one more of those. And I might play with this later and get like the right feeling for it and everything. Like we might change it so that it doesn't terminate right into a dock. It might have a little bit of ground, but we can always paint over that using the top brush. So we'll play around with that. So I don't know that I'm going to do Pikmin today because I am in my my second floor office and it is very hot up here today. I might just chill out a little bit. I did order another game to play if I'm not playing Pikmin. I should be getting the new Star Wars game with Cal Kestis. I can't remember the name of it. But that should arrive tomorrow while I'm at work, and then I should be able to have it installed in time for, say, 7 o'clock. So I might play that tomorrow. In theory, I could probably go downstairs later this afternoon and play like one of the games off of Game Pass, because they had a couple of games that are like more puzzly that I might try out. But I have to see how I feel about it. I don't want to make any promises yet. I think we're probably going to watch. There's the new season of Only Murderers in the Building that started today, so we'll likely do a little bit of that. That one actually, so we're going to delete that one that we just put down. We're going to grab this one instead. But yeah, we had on the other stream, we were trying to figure out whether or not we liked that Star Wars game or the Dead Space remake, and we had a tiebreaker in the form of my wife who said we got to do Star Wars instead. She is the actual boss, so that's just the way that it goes. Alright, so we've got the one side. This is going to look a little bit better, like this area right here, once we have that background stamp gone. So we'll do one save. I'll show you what that looks like. And actually, we'll be able to see how the ramparts look and everything like that. Come back down, unlock that, select here, mess with the opacity, and yeah, I mean, it's coming together pretty nice. I definitely still need to figure out a couple other things to make it pop even more. We know that we're going to kind of dust up the cobblestone, so let's actually see if we can do a little bit of that right now. We've got this as like my texture that I was using as my template. Because we didn't want like a lot of Versali-Virai is a very it is a very arid climate, so we want to make sure that there's not like a lot of greenery, there's not a lot of puddles. I'll tell you what, since we just hid that, let's actually see if there's an easy way for me to spot where to do things like that. I might have to kind of like create... Here, let me go into Firefox. See if there's anything easy to do that. Because I definitely am paying annual. It might be like monthly, but you pay it all at one time. Like that might be the way that it's considered. Pricing for Pro. So yeah, it should be this Pro yearly, the $25 a year. And then you could do Pro monthly if you just want to do the $5 a month, but it makes more sense to do the Pro yearly. They actually might have even changed some things, because I thought originally it was, as many maps as you wanted. Right now, I don't have 2,000 maps, but we are almost over that 100 bubble, and that's going to be a point where we're going to have to make some adjustments. I'm going to have to figure out a way to export those maps in a way that's a little bit more friendly to pick them back up. I think they have a backup tool that you can use. So if I come back in here, I think they might even have it on the map level where you're saying, here's what I need to do. You can do the save offline backup. And I think with that in mind, I could bring that back if I needed to. Once I get anywhere close to 2,000, I'm going to... well, you could do it like that, but the problem is at that point, it's not as editable as the way that you have it now. So, like, the same way that I have this stamp in the background, it would be like that. So, like, I can't actually, like, I can't manipulate that stamp as easily as I can manipulate the map itself. But if I'm doing an export as a backup, as long as importing it doesn't look wonky, it should be okay. And I think that I've done stuff that's kind of like that before, because I've had to share the templates with my brother, who also does maps from time to time, and we wanted to make sure that we were using the same, like 20 by 40 grid and everything like that. So we should be okay there. So we're going to come here. Size is fine. At least it should be. We're going to go to the foreground. Just going to be kind of testing it real quick. And let's hide that and see what it looks like. Yeah, I think that's going to do what we need it to do. So if we come here, and I might change the size of the brush so that I can be a little bit more, I can finesse it a little bit more. I think while we're here too, we know that we're going to need to do these two. Oh, that needs to be the full shebang. So that's how we kind of did the cobblestone in front of the tavern. We throw on. So I mentioned it yesterday. So we were thinking about streaming the campaign, and I think we might do it after we kind of get through this first arc. It's been a long time since we did it. We're all a little bit awkward. There's a couple of us that are more awkward than the rest. I want to make sure that everybody feels all right. It might be one of those things where we don't do it live, like maybe we record it and then put it up for people to see. That way we can like fill in like the dead space and stuff like that. But people can still experience, what we did and things like that. So I don't currently have the brush. Oh, it's because I'm using that layer. I'm going to go back to the circle. I mean, we've talked about doing it before. I think at one point we recorded a little bit of our campaign, because my best friend is like a podcast pro. So he's very good at, making sure that things sound great after the fact. But I feel like it would be kind of, I mean, right now I'm being a rambler and everything like that. But when you got 6 people who are trying to, actually our team is 7, our group is 7 people. When you've got 7 people trying to figure all their things out, there's a lot of dead space and stuff like that. And I just want to make sure that when we do it, we're doing it right. And like I said, we might even record those first ones and then just throw them onto like Twitch later. Maybe we can treat it like a behind the scenes or something like that. All right, I'm going to up the opacity. And we'll actually lower the size a bit. We're going to get these edges a little bit. Specifically, I don't want these kind of hard edges of the cobblestones. It'll look nicer if they're kind of brushed off a little bit. I just noticed today that that people do reruns on their Twitch. I didn't realize that that was something that people did too often. So I'm going to have to experiment with that a little bit too once we have more content. I did, earlier today, we had our first, and we'll talk about it at the close of the show, but we had our first video game review on the That's Entertainment channel since 2015, I want to say. I mean, it's been a long time. So I'm very happy with bringing that back. That's Entertainment's been a baby of mine for a long time, so I'm very excited to have the energy and the lowered stress levels to be able to pull something like that off now. Do a little bit of area like inside the cobblestone. Same thing with up here. And I think that's pretty good for the cobblestone. Again, it gives it like that rough lived-in appearance that that doesn't look too pristine. So we'll definitely use that. What I'll probably do is when I close this stream today, I'll go through, make sure that I'm, understanding. Here's what I'm doing. I'll put like a note together so that I don't get lost later, because that will happen from time to time. So what we'll do is we're actually going to put that stamp back on one more time. The opacity back to 30. And lock that down. And then next time, well, probably not next time, because what I'll do is I'm going to try and get as much traction on this map as I can. Because I want to, typically we do one map a week. I want to try and get this one and the one south of here done, because I'd really like to be able to connect this map to the tavern map, which is down here. And it'll be nice to be able to put both of those maps on the Etsy store. So we'll close that, save that for now. For anybody who's in the stream, we can chat for a couple more minutes if you want, and then I'll close up shop, and then, like I said, I might give it a little bit. We might watch an episode of TV, and then maybe around 8:30, 8:45 or so, I may be back on to do a video game stream off of Game Pass or something like that. We'll see if any of those games speak to me. I think there was a Short Hike, and that was one of the games that I downloaded, and there was some city builder where you're on top of like a roaming beast, and that looked kind of fun too. Meatball, thank you again for joining the stream. I appreciate it. All right, let's head back to our OBS, and we are going to close up the show. I'm going to make sure I have everything. I would love a chalky milk. Well, if you're there, that's great. If you're not, I'm sure I'll catch you later. All right, here we go. That one. Wrong one. Folks, I wanted to thank you for watching my stream today. On the screen now, you should see all the places you can find Tellest and That's Entertainment content. To find anything out about the Tellest Fantasy Universe, you can go to tellest.com. For the battle maps that my brother and I create, you can go to patreon.com/Tellest. To see my streams live, you can be sure to check me out here on twitch.tv/ThatTellestGuy. To see all the streams I've ever strummed for maps and Talking Tellest, you can check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/@WorldOfTellest. For our video game related content, you can go to thatentertains.com or the That's Entertainment YouTube, youtube.com/@That'sEntertainmentGames. And to find all of our awesome merchandise, including high quality mouse pads, handcrafted magic wands, battle maps, posters, and more, head to our shop at etsy.com/shop/Tellest. Thank you once again for joining me. I will see you next time.